right, welcome to the show, everybody. Again, another episode of Tomorrow's Leader here with Christine Gaze, founder and managing partner of Consulting Group. Christine, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, John. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. I know we have tried to match up schedules for a long time. You're super busy. I saw you. We were just talking about whatever it was a month ago on stage, and we didn't quite get a chance to connect, but great to get a chance virtually to do it.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.
So there's a lot that I'd love to explore with you, and you do some great programs, and I've seen it firsthand with in financial services and teaching advisors how to do financial planning. You also do a lot of leadership work and teaching leadership and how to have that CEO mindset. And what I really find interesting is a lot of what you teach is based on your own experiences and learnings as a leader and things that you've recognized may have been mistakes that you've made that you've now pulled into your program and how you teach leaders to be great leaders. So I'd love to explore that with you. I appreciate you being open and honest and authentic with recognizing some of your past mistakes. I think the audience would love to hear some of it.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've been in this industry for 27 years, and it's funny. Just about every role I've ever had, many of the roles started out as an individual, producer, and then as I succeeded, I kept getting, called on to leadership roles. So leadership is something that has hunted me throughout my career, and I have made some of the worst mistakes on record as a leader. But they now, as I've studied leadership and high-performing teams for the better part of 20 years as part of my career, some of the biggest mistakes that I've made represent the biggest points of passion in the programs that we run. And the first one is not recognizing my own role as leader. So that's something we see a lot in the financial services industry with financial advisors. Many advisors start out as individual producers, and then if things go well, they hire people and all of a sudden they're running a team. And many advisors are doing that without adjusting their mindset or their behavior in the practice. And I was certainly one of those. And I think one great example of the terrible behavior that I exhibited was the thought of the moment meeting. It's very popular in our industry, and I think we're not alone in that. So my weekly staff meeting would devolve into sort of a brainstorming. I'd have a bunch of things on my mind as the leader of a department, need to be developing programs or thought leadership. And I would have some intellectual issue that I was noodling, and I would invite the team to work on that with me so we could work through my challenge, because that was what was most important to me. So I basically kidnapped the meeting, and the effect on the staff was really demoralizing. And I didn't realize it at the time. I mean, as a leader, you're working on your biggest issues. You've got your team sort of brainstorming. It feels great for you. But I didn't realize just how it felt to be a participant in the meetings that I was running.
What made you come to that realization? Because I think there's so much value in what you just said, because I see it all the time. I've been part of meetings and I've caught myself in that same exact mode that you're describing. But how did you become aware of it? Did somebody bring it up to you, or did you kind of have an aha moment?
I think there's a feeling you get when you're in a really well-run meeting. So I think that as a leader, I was processing it on some level that this was not the best meeting, even though it sort of felt good for me. But I really had an epiphany about 10 years ago when I was serving as a committee member for a volunteer industry organization. And this committee had the most terrible meetings I think I've ever been a part of. And I've been a part of a lot of them, some of them at my own hand, but many of them not. The leader of this meeting, so the purpose of this, it was a conference planning committee And so there were 10 or so participants, and our goal was to suggest topics and ideas for speakers to plan a conference. So the leader of these meetings, the chair of this group, was completely distracted throughout every meeting, multitasking. Like you could hear her half paying attention and typing out emails, and she was always in an airport. And so that was certainly a huge distraction. But we would spend time discussing these ideas, and there was never any direction to execute. So we'd end up in this circular brainstorming discussion. And each week it felt like a fresh brainstorm and there was no progress. So I would be, as a participant, I'd send a recap email like, okay, I suggested these three ideas and these three speakers. Do you want me to contact them, or where are we headed with this? So it could not have been a more frustrating experience as a participant.
Yeah. It's again, I can relate 100% because I think a lot of meetings, it's almost like the leader, the person that's running these is just trying to fill time and get people talking. And they define a successful meeting as a lot of people talking, and the more people talking, the better. And in reality, you're right. I've always thought, okay, think, feel, do. What do I want people thinking as a result at the end of this meeting, feeling, and then what do I want them doing? What's the action step? So I like that thought, though. It prompts me to say, okay, at the end of a meeting, what's next? Like, where do we go from here? And you found that was not even close to being identified.
No, not at all. There were just a lot of hanging chads and open ends, and as a result, I mean, in that particular instance, it I think it took maybe 12 weeks. So we had 12 meetings to plan this one conference, and it could have been done in 4 to 6. So it was just sort of, not only was it really frustrating, but it was a huge time suck for not only me, but all the other volunteers.
Well, and you think about, running an organization, you think about, you put the time value of money on that hour of time. If you've got 10 people in there in that meeting, of any meeting, and you've got their average hourly rate multiplied out, but it's not just that's a cost, but then it's the opportunity cost of what else they could be doing if they weren't in that meeting. I mean, there's massive amounts of expenditure for pulling a group of high-powered, intelligent, smart, influential people together. So you got to make it worthwhile. So what happened? What changed that, or did it change?
Well, that round didn't change, but I was actually tapped to chair this committee for the following year. So the chair rolled off and exited stage right, and so I had an opportunity, and it was a really profound experience for me, because I inherited this committee who had suffered through this terrible experience along with me. So everyone was a little shell shocked. But I was determined to right the wrongs with this group, and to solve for the crickets. That had always been an issue as a team leader that had plagued me on conference call after conference call. And this was, before video conference. So you couldn't see the whites of their eyes. You couldn't see who was multitasking. And so here's what I did. I really established the why from the start and set the table with some direction. Here's the vision, just reminding everyone, what we're there for. We're a member organization, and we're there to serve our members. And we need to create as much value with this conference as possible, because people have a choice of which conference they go to and who they write a check to. And so I think setting the table and setting the vision and getting people aligned in that was really important. And then for me, I set some direction. So conferences in our industry, pre-COVID, there had been an explosion of conferences. So everyone under the sun was in it. Big financial services companies were doing conferences. Big media conference companies were in sort of the conference game. So there was a lot of competition. And there were a whole host of speakers that were on what I call the milk run. So it's like you'd see them at this conference, they'd be at that conference. And then if they're at our conference as well, it's like some of these speakers are knockout speakers. And so, you don't mind seeing, Dr. David Kelly or Greg Bellier or, whatnot in multiple places. But I challenged the team to come up, let's build this agenda with a third new discoveries. So let's roam a little farther. Let's scour academia. Let's bring up authors of new books that we've read. Like, let's try and differentiate our conference. So gave them, some direction. And then I also set a goal. So we have, a whole cadre of speaker scores from the work that we've done in the past. So and they're rated out of a 5-point scale. So it's like, let's just only work with speakers that have, if we have a historical record on them, it's 4.3 or higher, because it's really important that we have speakers who can make these topics come to life. You've got a lot of speakers who can speak on ESG or fixed income, but there aren't a lot of speakers who can keep the audience awake and engaged and not checking their texts or playing Wordle or, reading the Wall Street Journal. So my goal was to really have an engaged audience and have the best speakers who could really bring life to the topic. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of, part of the start, but then I worked on so that was kind of the why and the what. And then, there was really the how, which needed to change a bit. And I'm happy to tell you how I did that as well.
Yeah. And just interesting that, that's what I hear you saying is you started with defining success. And I think even broader than just a meeting or a committee, it's as a leader, how much and how clearly do we define for our team, what is the desired outcome? What are we trying to do? And I love that. Hey, you defined it so clearly as to say, hey, there's a third of this speaker group that we want to make sure we're going outside. So if I'm on that committee, there's no question about what it is that we're trying to accomplish. I can easily say we did it or we didn't. And I think that level of simplicity and clarity is critical for a leader to get their team achieving a certain result.
Well, and I think it was really important for us as a committee. I mean, we've been as a volunteer organization, as an industry nonprofit, we've been in the conference game for a long time. So it's easy to just recycle the same thing that you've done before. But I think it's really important, if you want to breathe new life into something, or you want to produce something that is truly differentiating and outstanding, to just take a step back and just, I guess, reassess. So having these guardrails or guidelines really engages people, because it kind of gets them thinking outside their own, the box that they've created from participating in these types of meetings and committees. It's a simple act, but I think it really makes a difference, and it did in this case.
Yeah. So talk a little bit more about the how. So you shared the why and the what. What does the how look like?
Yeah, and I mean, there are no, really magic beans here. It's really simple stuff, but I think being awake and aware and focused is really important. So we would have a round robin, and I did that, alphabetically, and I set the tone that people should come with a couple of ideas, so they knew what categories those ideas should fall into based on the goals that we, had identified. And what I did with this group, and it worked gradually over the weeks. We ended up running the call for, I think, 8 weeks. but people were originally reluctant to weigh in. I had to sort of pull things out of people. So I would direct the meeting. So people would be sharing their ideas sort of in an orderly fashion, and someone would present a few ideas or topics or speakers, and I'd be like, you know what, Jane, that's a really great idea. I think we might have had a private real estate speaker before. John, your company has a couple of private real estate products. What can you tell? Like, do you know of anyone? And so I would actually ping pong the participants and look to create connections as these topics and speakers came up. And little by little, I would solicit thoughts, and I would be willing to. I'll sit through the silence. I will put out a question. I will ask people what they thought. I just kept drawing out and creating these cross connections. And eventually, the committee fell into this rhythm where they were eager to share their feedback. So someone would share ideas, others would build upon that. They would suggest specific speakers. They would take the idea and shape it in a different direction. And so we ended up having these really rich discussions. So I think it was, I don't want to say it was painful at first. There were definitely some awkward silences that I had to manage through and be patient with at first, but the committee really sort of came alive and coalesced, and there was a really a sense of cohesion and this, you know, this trust that was built among, and camaraderie that was built among the group. So
it takes a lot. I mean, it takes a lot to bring a team like that together. And as you're talking about the silent moments, I mean, it takes going through discomfort to get a team that's comfortable with and feeling like, okay, I'm not going to be ridiculed for a bad idea, or there's not going to be a downside for me asking a question. You think about how many organizations breed that type of culture unknowingly. The leaders kind of sets a tone that they're only looking for certain ideas or good ideas, not really thinking that contradicts our traditions or what we've been doing in the past. So I'm just always interested in how leaders do that. And I wanted to bounce back to something that was interesting too, because earlier you had talked about the leader that was running those calls on the phone, distracted in an airport and everything like that. A lot of leadership, I find, comes down to also really people understanding the level of importance on something. And a leader in that situation sends a really clear message, and sometimes unknowingly and unintentionally, that this is not really that important to me as the leader. If I'm multitasking and I'm really not listening and I'm not really engaged, it doesn't matter what I say. Even if I say this is really important, well, my actions are not saying that. I'm saying there's other things that are more important going on even right now and repeatedly when I run this meeting. So what's your thought on that? I mean, how important is that for a leader?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that, you know, so that have pay attention, the disengaged, the multitasking, that is so detrimental to, you know, to the culture, to the outcomes of that meeting. It's so detrimental to the way people feel about participating in that meeting, that if that's all you can give to that meeting as a leader, then maybe you should beg out of the meeting. I mean, I think it's worse to show up and act like that than it is to, you know, to hand the baton to someone else who can be fully engaged and participate in the meeting. It's funny. Meeting management and team communication is one of the core topics that we contend with in one of our programs called the CEO Mindset. And there are so many basic skills and basic tenets that not just a leader, but anybody on their team, you know, needs to learn in order to cultivate a positive, you know, culture, in order to ensure you know, efficiency in meetings and to cultivate this that proper feeling, that feeling like I've just attended a good meeting, I contribute, I feel good about this cause, and I'm excited to go back to my desk and do X, Y, or Z that supports, this mission and vision.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is, I think it's often, I guess, perhaps glossed over or de-emphasized, or I think people don't recognize the importance of meetings, and meeting norms and communication, norms as vehicles to stoke engagement, and to really build a positive culture on the
Mm-hmm.
team. And those are just, they sound like soft terms, but every research study I've ever shown has shown that that positive cultures and high engagement lead to double, triple the revenue and the
Mm-hmm.
growth trajectory for a firm.
I've never seen a company or an organization with a bad culture sustain long-term performance. It may be short-term, but ultimately the culture is going to override everything that's going on and drive everything that's going on. Um, it's interesting also when you may have leaders that are listening and saying, "Boy, you know what? When Christine was talking about that thought of the day meeting, that's me. I relate to that, and I didn't even realize that." Instead of that approach, which leads to the thought of the day meeting, where you're kind of identifying and addressing and inviting people into your solve your own problems that are going on in your head, what should a leader be thinking, or maybe what questions should they be asking, or what kind of, I don't know, lens should they be looking through to be able to approach that type of meeting better?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the first couple of steps are, sort of the vision setting and the guardrails, but also setting of cultural norms. And so, the staff meeting is, I mean, typically that's a meeting where people are sharing updates on their progress. It's an opportunity for team members to learn what others are doing. And so, if a leader is going to hold staff meetings, some preparation is required. I mean, that was one of my big takeaways. It's like leaders eat last. It's like you have to work harder than anybody on this committee because you are the one that hold the keys to orchestrating a successful meeting and ensuring that progress, occurs from meeting to meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So that meant for me, I've got to synthesize everything that happened, produce a recap, and ensure that while we're in the meeting and afterwards, people are clear on follow-up and next step and who's going to take the ball and run with this idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I think defining your meetings and meeting norms. I mean, it's perfectly acceptable to have a brainstorming meeting, but you got to label it as such, set the appropriate, sort of vision and expectations for that, and invite the group in for that specific purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole host of different meeting types for a company. So being clear on what ones are ongoing and necessary, how are they going to to run, and ensuring that you prepare. And if you're a leader and you're running at Mach 10 with your hair on fire, maybe you declare if maybe you create a leadership opportunity for someone else to run the meeting, and maybe you act as actually a participant in a meeting. And you've got to also be aware of your power as a leader. So in the meetings that I ran, I shared my ideas last. And sometimes we didn't even get to my ideas because they already came up, and where the group came up with a perfectly terrific agenda without the insertion of of my ideas. So
I'm so happy you said that, because I think that's so key. There's so much to be gained by, even when that leader is wanting, they feel like they have the solution or the best idea or whatnot, to hold back and let the conversation take place, because what you say as a leader will influence the rest of the conversation. And there's
yeah.
so much to be gained by just sitting back and listening, and then offering your ideas, thoughts, feedback, whatever the case may be. And your other point, I think, is also masterful of that leader that's running back to back meeting, working like crazy. You need the time, the space, the pause, the breaks to be able to think through things. And even, I used to think that when I was running an organization and things were kind of really well wired, and I would show up and have my weekly meeting with my team and everything like that. And I got to a point where I realized, I'm not prepping the way that I need to be, even though the structure is all prepped and everybody knows they're part of that meeting and whatnot. I need to think about what messages I want to communicate and how I want to communicate it to the team. I can't just walk in there and just have it all pop into my head. I need to make sure that I'm prepared. As great as I feel that I am as a leader, I'm talking to anybody out there that is having lots of success, you still need to take the time to go into that. That's the game. That's game time. You have to practice and prepare for the game. As great of an athlete as you are, your performance on that field or on the court is not going to be as best as it is if you haven't prepared, no matter how great you are.
No, you're absolutely right about that. And we think about that as the journey from accidental leadership to intentional leadership. And so we think it's really important to be intentional as the leader, to consciously cultivate culture, to be awake and aware and focused on cultivating the norms that will create the kind of company that you want to espouse or you would want to work at yourself. It sounds like a bunch of soft stuff to those who maybe grew up with a more authoritative or directive leadership style, but this is the leadership style that is working today. This sort of collaborative leadership style where you not only put yourself to your highest and best use as a leader, but you have to think about your organization and how do you try and do that for every individual on your team. You have to be thinking about the matrix or the system as a leader, not just what's going to make you feel good from day to day.
Yeah, exactly. And it's about leveraging the talent that you have on your team. If you've got somebody who's super talented, but you're only getting a 7 out of them out of a 10 because you're not putting them in the position to really do what they do best and can do best, then that's not leadership. That's the other part of it too. So
exactly.
Well, Christine, this has been phenomenal. I know we're short on time here. First of all, congrats on the success you're having and have had. I've seen it firsthand, the impact that your company makes. And I've seen it multiple times and super impressed. If people want to connect with you or they want to learn more about Purpose Consulting Group, how do they do that? Where do they go?
We're at purposeconsultinggroup.com. So it's pretty simple. We work exclusively in the financial services space. We have a number of programs. We work both in the area of human capital competency, which is where the CEO mindset falls. And as you mentioned at the start, we also work in the wealth management competency space. So we develop a lot of thought leadership and training programs. So if you're in financial services and you are leading a team of advisors, feel free to check us out. We've got a lot on our website.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure a lot of people will. And I appreciate your time today. I appreciate you sharing all your insights. I love it. Super valuable stuff. And I've picked up some great things I know the listeners have. So I appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much, John. Have a great day.
You got it, Christine. And thanks all for joining today on today's episode of Tomorrow's Leader. We've been here with Christine Gaze, who's the owner and or the founder and managing partner of Purpose Consulting Group. We'll have all her information and the link to Purpose Consulting Group in the show notes. Be sure to check her out and them out. And as always, like, share, subscribe, go down below, give a 5-star review, and we'll see you next time. Take care.